Hey everyone, before we get started, take a second to like and subscribe to the show.
It's the best way to help us share great information with more people. Thank you.
Welcome to this episode of CareLab. We have something really special for you here today. We've got a trusted caregiver, a vulnerable woman with dementia, and a devastating betrayal hidden in plain sight. In part one of this special series on financial exploitation, we are sharing the story of a woman living with dementia whose trust was slowly manipulated by someone close to her. What began as small concerns eventually uncovered a heartbreaking case of financial exploitation. We're going to explore the early warning signs, the emotional impact, and the journey of one man determined to do something about it.
And that man is Charles E. Wallace Jr. He has a technology background in the finance, banking, healthcare, and collections industry, which is so interesting to tie into the story and what happened. He's married with 2 daughters and 2 grandchildren. And when he's not spending time with his family, working or writing, he enjoys coaching youth basketball, outdoor activities, and cooking. And The Caregiver's Game, Unraveling Financial Deceit in the Shadows of Dementia is his first book, and we are going to talk about the story. Chip, thanks for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Let's jump right in, and let's not get too into the nitty-gritty at first. Kind of lay the foundation for us. Give us a little
Sure.
bit background. Who was your mother? Just kind of usher us
Sure.
in. Tell us who the characters are here.
Yeah. So my mother had always been an independent woman. She'd been married for about 30 years, 25 years to one man. But she'd been married 4 other times. So she'd been through a number of husbands. And so this husband she had lived with at this condo that was my grandmother's, and she moved in the mid 90s. So she'd been in the same place since the mid 90s. People around her knew her. She'd actually been on the board for the condo. It was a high rise condo complex there in the middle of North Dallas. And she was pretty comfortable there and had no interest in leaving. Myself and my siblings had all moved away. And so I was in Southern Illinois around the St. Louis area. My siblings are on the West Coast, so I was the closest, and I was supposed to watch over. One of the things that she had done, though, she had been working with a stockbroker for, 40 years. He worked with my grandmother, a CPA since the early 90s. So long-time fiduciaries that were around. And so I'd always figured, if she gets stuck, she would reach out to them. In mid 2017, in August, her husband had an issue with his mental health and needed to move away. He was about mid 80s and moved down to Austin, about 200 miles away, leaving my mother alone for the first time in several decades. So when I went to visit her in late 17, she was down to probably about 95 pounds. She was about 5'5".
Mm.
And she was always one to keep herself thin. She was always wanting to, make sure she looked good, wanted to, look like something on a magazine. And she had the painting, which is on the cover of the book, that was from when she was about 17 years old. And so she always thought, pretty well of herself. But now she was starting to get a little too thin. And I suggested then, I said, well, why don't you get someone to cook for you? You're in a building here, a lot of older folks are in the building. Someone probably has somebody that comes in a few times a week and sets up something for you, because her fridge at the time was pretty barren.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talked about it. And a few months later, suddenly she contacts my sister, who tells her, I have a new friend. And I wasn't aware of that phrase being a clue to what was going to happen over the next few years. And so, but again, we were distant. And so it was really up to her. She stayed in the building. People were around. But when I went to visit about a month later, she had a ton of food in the fridge. I mean, the type to feed a family of 4 or 5.
Mm.
And since she had always been slim, that much food was kind of silly. There was no way. So I asked her for receipts, and the caregiver at the time, who wasn't really a caregiver, was more of just kind of someone who was helping her with their food bills and stuff, said, well, I'll get receipts if your mother asks for them, because I work for her. And then I looked at my mother, who had never been quiet before. And she's now about 79 years old. And she had someone who had never in the past given large sums of money, for example, to anybody outside the family. Even her donating to places like Salvation Army was probably a little thin. And so to see her act like that was a concern. So we figured we'd ask the CPA who was kind of watching to get receipts. Well, we received probably 2 receipts that spring and then it stopped. And we never really see much. And so
Hmm.
that was through 2018. And she was not seeing a neurologist at the time. She was seeing a regular general practitioner doctor, and he diagnosed her with Lyme disease. Said that's why you've got a mental fog and can't have have a memory
Wait,
issue.
hold on. Lyme disease?
Yeah.
This is a woman. Now, y'all know I lived in Dallas for a long time.
Hmm.
There's not a lot of
Dear.
outdoor space for ticks in
Correct.
North Dallas.
Correct. There's not. And that's what I said. Exactly. And I said, my mother lives in a cement area. She goes from one building to the mall to another building. And that's really what she's always done. I said, there's no way something, funny's going on. But she believed it and wanted to believe it because if she didn't, that she had to admit she was getting old.
Mm,
Mm.
And so she started this program that he put her on of the antibiotics. Said, you've got to do it for 13 months. And I said, that's a really interesting number. Um, and at the time said to get this by antibiotic, you'll need to contact this number in New Zealand.
okay.
And
Okay.
so he had said that. And so she put off seeing a neurologist for a year.
Because she's going through
And
that treatment.
right, that treatment. And
Mhm.
so we got close to the end of that treatment, finally into the summer of 18. And I called the doctor and I said, do you have a neurologist to refer her to since we're about done with her 13 months? And again, his clientele is 70% probably Medicare folks. And he goes, well, I went to go look at my list, but all my referrals have retired. And I'm sitting there thinking, you've got aging clientele and you don't have an active referral for a neurologist? He goes, yeah, let me find one. So we eventually get one set up. And so we go see the neurologist in the fall. And the caregiver came with us. And at the time, she thought that that was good. They had been getting along pretty well. And I knew nothing about, what you should or shouldn't do going in this situation. Watch them do the what they call the MoCA test
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
and do the words. Can she draw? Can she identify things? And I'm watching her draw was like, watching a small kid holding, a pencil and trying to do something. Well, I didn't know what I was watching. My mother had shown us a few months ago earlier that she had been kind of diagnosed with something that was an off Parkinson's because I've seen the handshake and things like that. Dementia was never in my head, but the caregiver knew what she was watching, and so we didn't see the score of the test, even though we had medical power of attorney. We didn't see the scores until months later. We didn't see any of the medical records.
And
Um,
just for reference
sure.
here, for folks who are listening who don't know what a MoCA is, MoCA stands for the
Hmm.
Montreal Cognitive Assessment. It's a very common cognitive
Hmm.
assessment that is a quick and easy assessment for cognitive decline in people. So often, if cognitive decline or dementia is suspected in someone, the doctor or social worker, whoever they're seeing, will give a MoCA as a very quick way to
Hmm.
get an idea about what their baseline cognitive
Right. Yeah.
capacity is.
And this it's a 30-point test. And from what I was heard from another doctor later on, if you score worse than a 25, you've got a pretty good issue. She scored apparently a 16 on it and took it again in February of 2019, so the next year, and apparently scored a 17. Well, we didn't see it, but all we heard was she told my sister, oh, I must be getting better. I scored better on the test. She didn't tell us by 1 point, which is kind of irrelevant.
Mhm.
You're already in the teens. There's an issue. Um,
I got a question though. In the
sure.
moment in which you were at the doctor's appointment
Mhm.
and she was taking the test and you're watching it, um, did they not give any? Did that session end with like, "Thanks for coming in. We're gonna look at the test scores and get back to you," or like usually
They
at the end of
they
something, they're
set up a
telling you
they set
something.
up a fo yeah, she set up a follow-up, and also she told the lady she'd been kinda depressed, so she set up an appointment with a psychiatrist to kind of talk through that. Depression was obvious, her husband had left, and she's by on her own, and so she did that, and she went and saw a doctor, and a psychiatrist over at UT Southwest, and they she started on some medicine, didn't like the side effects, and quit. So she only did
Mm,
it for 30 days, the depression
Mm.
medicine. In the meantime, the caregiver, who I found out later, had worked with people like this before and had taken advantage of folks like this. She was an obvious, case. No one's around. We can do that. So she was taking care of my mother, and so my mother, we didn't know much until probably the summer of 19 when we started requesting some medical records. And when I first requested medical records and we got them from the DO, who was the one that did the Lyme disease test was in the packet. And the results were inconclusive. And so when I did a little research on the DO, discovered that he had a habit of um, diagnosing Lyme disease for folks. Yeah,
Interesting.
I found a review on MedWeb or someplace that mentioned the doctor tried to diagnose her mother with Lyme, and she thought that was silly, and they left. I was able actually to look up his records in CMS. Back then, you could get the spreadsheets pretty fast, and saw he had a history of diagnosing his patients, these older patients. Usually, with that age of Medicare, you're going to have over 40%, maybe 60% of some type of Alzheimer's or dementia issue just because of the age. His range was 10%. So he wasn't diagnosing people, which is why he didn't have any referral from neurologists because he didn't need them. And so, but
mm,
it also played to my mother because she wanted to believe she wasn't getting older. And so it made her susceptible to anybody who would just compliment her and say, you're doing good. Don't worry about it. And we'll help you out. And so it kind of went from there. So 2019, we got the medical records, saw stuff. My sister suggested, hey, well, maybe we should get a competency letter from the neurologist that she's seeing now in case something comes up. Because my sister had gone to town during that summer and saw that she was not doing well.
Hmm.
We get the letter of capacity from the neurologist. He said, no, she doesn't have the ability to really make financial decisions. So that's the end of July of 2019. We send
Hold
it
on.
to,
Wait, can we back
yeah,
up again?
sure.
So, did anyone tell you before that time, before your sister went
Mhm.
to get the letter of capacity? Did anyone tell y'all before that time that your mother wasn't capable of making financial decisions
Yep.
based on
No,
their assessment of her?
no, we had no feedback from any medical visits. And the folks, the fiduciaries around her, all
Huh.
thought because she had the ability to have
A
communication,
conversation.
conversation for
yeah.
5 to 10 minutes. That
Which by the way is so common. Like
Mhm.
if people and so many people go undiagnosed because they can have a face value high
Right.
surface conversation and so it seems like they're okay, but you have to start digging a little bit deeper. So yeah,
Oh,
I
you
don't
spent
think
30 minutes
people aren't
with them?
trying to do the
Yeah.
wrong thing. It's just that it's if you're not looking, it's easy to miss. I'm sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I
Go
know
ahead,
that's
Chip.
right. No, and I tried to get I had that summer, I suggested to the broker, I said, "You and the CPA, take her out to lunch, just the 3 of you." I said, "And when you do, you guys can eat whatever you want, but don't let her order soup. Have her order something else, sandwich, whatever, but can't order soup." Because I wanted to have them see her use her hands and manipulate things. My sister had seen my mother try to eat a waffle with an upside down fork, for example, that summer. So I wanted them to experience that issue. But we didn't know what it was medically because we hadn't been around it before. And the
Yeah.
CPA responded at the time to my sisters, "Oh, she's all right. It's not like she's drooling." And we didn't know what to do with him, but we couldn't do anything because he was also going to be her executor, besides her power of attorney. So when we sent that capacity letter to those three fiduciaries, an attorney as well, within 10 days, my sister and I were kicked off the medical power of attorney.
Ooh, let's hold there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And let's because we are gonna have you back for another
Mhm.
episode. And so let's keep continue with the story there because I'm also really interested in like how the caregiver became a part of the life too,
Mhm.
right? Like where the caregiver came from.
Sure.
So if you made it to the end of this episode, make sure you like and subscribe so that you can know when the next iteration of this really interesting story drops. See y'all next time.
Bye.